The school was an old building with big windows and long hallways that smelled faintly of chalk and books. Every day, students rushed through these halls, laughing and talking, while teachers moved from classroom to classroom, trying to keep order and meet deadlines. But in the quiet corners of the school, there was someone who often went unnoticed. She moved slowly, carrying her cleaning supplies, her shoes making soft sounds on the polished floor. No one paid much attention to her. She was just the janitor. She had been working at the school for many years. Every morning, she arrived before the first bell, and every evening, she left long after the last student had gone home. She knew every corner, every hidden nook, and every squeaky door. She worked quietly, never asking for praise, and most of the time, people didn't notice her at all. She was content with that. The job gave her a routine, and she liked the feeling of keeping things clean and orderly. But there was one place in the school that always drew her attention. In the music room in the far corner of the building, there stood an old piano. Its wood was scratched in some places, the keys were a little yellowed with age, and it had a faint musty smell. But to her it was beautiful. Every time she passed by it, her hands itched to touch the keys. She didn't play for anyone else. It was just for her, a quiet escape from the noise and busyness of the school. Students often peeked in the music room and whispered to each other, wondering why the janitor sometimes lingered there. Teachers, too, noticed it now and then. Most of them assumed she was just tidying up, maybe moving dust off the piano. But some began to feel annoyed. They had important things to do, and they didn't like seeing anyone, especially someone not trained in music, spending time on the instrument. One particular teacher, the music teacher, had been growing more frustrated each day. She had been teaching at the school for years and took her job very seriously. She believed that music required discipline, practice, and skill. When she saw the janitor touching the piano keys, she felt that the janitor was disrespecting the instrument, even if she didn't know it. She didn't like that someone without training was spending so much time on what she considered a serious instrument. One afternoon, the music teacher was walking past the music room and saw the janitor standing at the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. The teacher stopped in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowing. She took a deep breath and called out sharply, "I told you before, don't touch that piano. It's not for playing around." The janitor looked up, startled, her hands quickly moving away from the keys. She was quiet, her face showing a mixture of embarrassment and surprise. She had never meant any harm. She had only wanted a brief moment to let her fingers dance across the keys when no one was watching. It was a simple joy, a way to feel alive in the midst of endless cleaning and unnoticed work. The teacher stepped closer, her voice firm. "This piano is expensive and delicate. It's not for you to play. You need to stay away from it." The janitor nodded quickly, almost apologetically. "I understand," she whispered. Then, with a small sigh, she returned to her cleaning duties, wiping the windows and dusting the shelves as if nothing had happened. But inside, her heart was still at the piano. She longed for the keys, the music that could flow from her hands if only she had the chance. As the days passed, the teacher's warnings became more frequent. Each time the janitor approached the piano, she felt a mix of fear and longing. She wanted to respect the rules, but the music called to her. Sometimes, she would glance at the piano from across the room, imagining the melodies she could create. She remembered songs from her childhood, tunes she had loved but never had the chance to play. Her fingers twitched as if they remembered, and her heart ached for the sound. Students noticed the tension. Some whispered among themselves, curious about why the janitor always seemed drawn to the piano. Some thought she might be hiding a secret, but no one could imagine what it could be. The music teacher, too, began to watch carefully, unsure of what to expect. She didn't trust that someone without lessons could know how to play. She assumed it would always be clumsy, awkward, and unworthy of the piano's sound. Yet the janitor never gave up entirely. Every day, she worked around the piano, sometimes cleaning nearby, sometimes straightening the music stands. She would hum softly, a tune only she could hear, imagining her hands moving across the keys. It was a quiet rebellion, a secret she kept close to her heart. She didn't want to get into trouble, but she also couldn't ignore the pull of the music. One rainy afternoon, the school felt unusually quiet. Students were stuck in their classrooms because of a sudden storm, and teachers were busy keeping things organized. The janitor moved through the halls, mop in hand, her thoughts wandering back to the piano. She paused in front of it, glancing at the keys. The room was empty, no one watching, no one judging. The keys seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light, as if inviting her. She stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly. Just a few notes, she told herself. No one would know. Her fingers hovered over the keys, and she took a deep breath. It felt like coming home, like touching something she had longed for her entire life. She pressed a key, then another, and a soft sound filled the room. It was gentle, hesitant, and beautiful. She closed her eyes, letting the music flow from her heart into her fingers, filling the empty room with a melody that no one had expected. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she remembered the teacher's warnings. She remembered the sharp voice and the stern look. But at that moment, all that mattered was the music. She could feel it vibrating through her, soothing her spirit, and giving her a sense of freedom she had never known while pushing a mop or wiping windows. Little did she know that this quiet, secret moment would not stay hidden for long. The music, though soft, carried in a way that reached the hallways. Students paused in their classrooms, tilting their heads to listen. Teachers stepped out briefly, curious. And the music teacher herself, returning from another room, heard something that made her stop dead in her tracks. The sound was unlike anything she had imagined the janitor could produce. The janitor's fingers moved gracefully, effortlessly, as if they remembered every note she had ever heard. The melody was touching, full of emotion and skill. It wasn't clumsy at all. It was beautiful. For the first time, the teacher felt her assumptions challenged. Her heart raced, and her eyes widened. She had no idea this quiet, unnoticed janitor could play like this. In that moment, the janitor was not just a janitor. She was a musician, a storyteller, someone whose hands could speak through music in ways words never could. The music teacher realized she had been wrong to judge her. She had underestimated the janitor, assuming that her job and appearance meant she had no talent. But here she was, playing with a skill and passion that demanded respect. The storm outside continued, but inside the music room, a different kind of energy filled the air. The janitor played on, unaware of how close the teacher had come, unaware that her secret talent was about to change everything. And in that small, quiet room, music once ignored began to shine, showing that true talent often hides in the most unexpected places. The music teacher couldn't stop thinking about what she had just heard. She had walked into the music room expecting to scold the janitor again, to catch her playing carelessly, maybe even to warn her more firmly. But what she heard stopped her in her tracks. The notes flowed from the piano in a way that was smooth, full of feeling, and completely unexpected. It wasn't just good. It was extraordinary. The janitor, someone she had barely noticed before, someone she thought was simply curious or reckless, had a talent that could not be ignored. She took a step closer, trying to process what she was hearing. Each note seemed to tell a story that no one had heard before. There was no hesitation in the janitor's fingers, no clumsiness or uncertainty. It was as if the music had been inside her all along, waiting for this very moment to come out. The teacher felt a mix of emotions she hadn't expected: astonishment, disbelief, and even a little guilt for having judged someone so quickly. For years, the teacher had worked with many students. Some were good, some were talented, and a few were exceptional. But none had moved her like this. The janitor's playing was raw, real, and full of heart. The way her hands danced over the keys, the way she could make the piano sound soft and gentle one moment and powerful and commanding the next. It was unlike anything the teacher had ever seen in her own classroom. She couldn't help but notice the subtle details. The way the janitor shifted her weight slightly with each phrase, how her fingers curved naturally, how her eyes closed in concentration as if the music was a part of her very soul. It was more than just playing notes. It was telling a story, and the teacher, for the first time, realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. She felt a small pang of regret. All this time, she had dismissed the janitor, assuming that her role meant she had no real skill. Now she saw clearly how wrong she had been. The janitor was so absorbed in her music that she didn't notice the teacher standing at the doorway. She moved as if she was alone in the room, her fingers pressing keys with precision and emotion. There was a calm confidence in her movements, a quiet strength that made the teacher's earlier frustrations seem almost foolish. The music teacher knew she had to be careful in this moment, to not disturb the flow, to let the janitor finish, because whatever she was creating was something rare, something special. As the last notes lingered in the air, the janitor slowly opened her eyes. She looked around, surprised to see the teacher still there, frozen in awe. The janitor's face showed a mix of nervousness and hesitation. She had expected the teacher to be angry, to demand she stop immediately. Instead, she saw a look she had never seen before. Respect, amazement, and a deep curiosity. It was a strange feeling for her. She had always thought of herself as invisible, someone whose work was unnoticed and unappreciated. But now, she realized that for a brief moment, her talent had shone through and was being recognized. The teacher finally spoke, her voice soft and careful. I didn't know you could play like that." The janitor blinked, unsure how to respond. She had never shown anyone her skills before. She had always played in secret, letting the music be her private escape. It wasn't about praise or recognition. It was about feeling alive, about letting her hands and heart speak when words couldn't. I've always loved music," she admitted quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "I didn't think anyone would care, so I never played for anyone." The teacher took a step forward, her eyes still wide with astonishment. "Care? Everyone should care. That was incredible. You have real talent. I don't know why I never realized it." She paused, taking a deep breath. I thought you were just curious, just playing around. But this is something else entirely." The janitor felt a warmth in her chest. She had never been praised for anything musical before. People had always seen her as the janitor, someone who kept the school clean, someone who worked behind the scenes. No one had ever imagined that she could create something so beautiful, something that could move people with just her hands and her heart. For the first time, she felt seen, truly seen, not for her job, but for who she was and what she could do. The teacher sat down on a nearby chair, trying to gather her thoughts. She knew she had underestimated the janitor in a way that she hadn't done with anyone else. All those assumptions, all that judgment suddenly felt wrong. She realized that talent doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides in the quietest places, in people who aren't looking for attention, in those who work silently while the world rushes past. And here it was standing, or rather sitting, right in front of her. She asked carefully, Have you ever studied music formally?" The janitor shook her head. "No, I taught myself mostly. I listened to recordings, remembered songs, and practiced whenever I could. But I never had lessons, never really had anyone guide me. I just love the music." The teacher's mind raced. Here was someone with no formal training, yet she played with a skill and emotion that rivaled some of the best students the teacher had ever taught. She realized that sometimes passion and dedication could outweigh formal education. Sometimes natural talent was all it took, and this janitor had it in abundance. As the afternoon went on, the teacher and the janitor talked quietly. The janitor shared her love for music, the songs she remembered from her childhood, and the hours she spent practicing secretly. The teacher listened, fascinated. She began to understand the janitor's world, the moments of joy and escape that the piano had given her. It was more than just playing notes. It was living a dream in secret, a dream that now had the chance to be seen. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the school quiet and calm. But inside the music room, something had changed. The teacher felt a shift in perspective, a realization that her assumptions had been wrong. She saw the janitor not just as someone who cleaned floors and dusted shelves, but as a person with dreams, talent, and a story that deserved to be heard. And the janitor, once invisible, began to see herself in a new light, knowing that her music could touch hearts and perhaps even change lives. The teacher finally smiled, a small, genuine smile. "I want to help you," she said softly. "I want to see you play more, to share your gift. You shouldn't hide it anymore." The janitor felt a mix of emotions: surprise, gratitude, and a little fear. But mostly she felt hope. For the first time, she realized that her secret was no longer a burden. It was a gift, one that someone else appreciated and wanted to nurture. She nodded quietly, feeling a sense of trust she had never felt before. The rest of the day passed in a blur. The janitor returned to her cleaning, but her heart stayed in the music room. The teacher couldn't stop thinking about the performance she had just witnessed. She knew that the school had never seen anything like it, and she felt a responsibility to help the janitor explore her talent, to make sure that her gift didn't go unnoticed again. By the time the final bell rang and the halls emptied, the teacher and the janitor had already begun planning. They talked about practice times, about the kinds of music the janitor loved, and about how she could continue to grow as a musician. It was the beginning of something new, something unexpected, and something wonderful. The janitor had finally found someone who believed in her, and the teacher had discovered that true talent often hides in the most unlikely places. The next day, the school felt different, even though nothing had changed on the surface. Students arrived, carrying their backpacks, chatting with friends, and heading to their classrooms. Teachers moved about, busy with lessons and preparations. Yet, in the music room, a quiet anticipation lingered. The janitor had arrived early, just as she always did, but today she felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. The previous day's events had left a mark. For the first time, she knew that someone had truly heard her music and appreciated it. She wanted to play again, but the fear of doing something wrong or being judged still lingered. She paused at the doorway of the music room, glancing at the piano. The keys gleamed softly in the morning light, as if inviting her once more. She stepped inside, her heart racing. Today, it wasn't just a secret moment for herself. Today, she knew the music teacher would be watching, and that added a weight she hadn't felt before. Still, she couldn't resist. She sat down on the piano bench, her fingers hovering over the keys, remembering the melody she had played yesterday. She took a deep breath and began to play. The music filled the room, soft at first, almost hesitant, then gaining confidence and strength. She let herself feel each note, allowing her emotions to guide her hands. It wasn't about impressing anyone or proving a point. It was about the music itself, about the joy and freedom it brought her. Each phrase she played seemed to tell a story, and she felt the tension in her body melt away with each note. The music teacher had arrived quietly, not wanting to interrupt. She leaned against the doorway, her eyes wide, watching the janitor play. The teacher couldn't help but marvel at the skill and emotion on display. The janitor's fingers moved fluidly, with a grace that seemed natural and effortless. She played not like someone who had studied under strict rules and hours of lessons, but like someone who had lived with music in her heart for a lifetime. Every chord, every note, carried emotion and depth that resonated in the room. The students passing by the music room stopped in their tracks. Whispers traveled through the hallways as more and more people gathered near the doorway. They could hear the music even if they couldn't see the player yet. Some teachers peeked in, curious and surprised by what they heard. No one had expected such a beautiful sound to come from someone who was never part of the music classes. The janitor's music seemed to pull everyone closer, capturing their attention and curiosity. The janitor played on, oblivious to the growing audience. She didn't notice the smiles, the astonished faces, or the whispers of admiration. All she felt was the music and the connection it created between her heart and the piano. Each note seemed to carry a part of her story, a story of years spent unnoticed, working quietly while holding on to a secret passion. For her, the piano was more than an instrument. It was a friend, a companion, and a way to express feelings she couldn't put into words. The teacher finally spoke softly, afraid to break the spell. "You're incredible. I didn't know you could play like this. You have a gift." The janitor paused, looking up in surprise. She had never thought of her playing as a gift before. To her, it was just something she loved, something that made her feel alive. Hearing the teacher's words stirred a new feeling inside her. A sense of possibility, of recognition, and of hope. She nodded quietly, not fully trusting herself to speak, but grateful for the acknowledgement. The teacher approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "I want to help you. I want to make sure the world doesn't miss this. You shouldn't keep it hidden anymore." The janitor's hands hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. She had spent so long keeping her talent a secret, afraid of what others might think or say. Now, with the teacher's encouragement, she felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Could she really share this part of herself with others? Would people understand, or would they judge her for being a janitor first and a musician second? Despite her doubts, she began to play again, this time with even more confidence. The music teacher listened intently, amazed at the depth and emotion that seemed to grow with each note. She realized that this was no ordinary talent. It was something rare, something that could touch hearts and inspire others. The teacher felt a responsibility to nurture this gift, to help the janitor grow and share her music with the world. Students started to gather outside the music room, quietly listening, their curiosity turning into admiration. They whispered among themselves, amazed at the sound coming from someone they had never expected. Some of them had taken music lessons themselves, and even they were impressed by the skill and feeling in the janitor's playing. Word began to spread, and soon a small crowd had formed, all drawn in by the beauty of the music. The janitor played without pause, her focus entirely on the piano. She let her emotions guide her, letting every note reflect a part of her life, her years of hard work, her quiet moments of solitude, her dreams and hopes. The music seemed to tell a story that words could never fully capture. It was a story of resilience, of passion, and of the power of following one's heart despite the world's expectations. The teacher watched with a mix of pride and awe. She had never imagined that someone she had underestimated could possess such extraordinary talent. She realized that her role was no longer just to teach music to students, but to support this hidden musician, to help her realize her potential, and to give her the opportunities she had long deserved. As the day went on, the janitor continued to play, and the room became a place of inspiration. Students and teachers alike stopped what they were doing to listen, captivated by the music. Even the principal, hearing the melodies from down the hallway, came to see what was happening. Everyone was amazed, and it became clear that the janitor's talent was something truly special, something that could not be ignored or hidden any longer. The janitor finally stopped, her fingers lingering on the last notes. The room was silent for a moment, and then a wave of applause and cheers filled the air. She looked around, surprised and overwhelmed by the reaction. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a janitor or someone behind the scenes, but as a musician, a storyteller, and an artist. The teacher approached her, smiling warmly. "You've shown everyone today what you can do. This is only the beginning. There's so much more you can achieve, and I want to help you every step of the way." The janitor nodded, feeling a mixture of relief, joy, and determination. She had always loved music, but now she realized that she didn't have to hide her gift anymore. With the teacher's support and the recognition of those around her, she felt ready to embrace her talent and share it with the world. That afternoon, the janitor returned to her cleaning duties, but her heart stayed in the music room. She knew that her life was changing, that something new and extraordinary had begun. She had discovered that talent could not be hidden forever, and that sometimes, the people who were least expected to shine were the ones who could illuminate the world in ways that no one else could imagine. After the afternoon performance, word spread quickly throughout the school. Students who had listened from the hallways whispered excitedly to their friends, and even teachers who had initially doubted the janitor's abilities began to reconsider. The music room had become a place of quiet fascination, a place where people paused to hear the soft, emotional notes drifting from the piano. Everyone who heard her play was touched in some way, moved by the skill and feeling she poured into each note. The janitor returned to her usual tasks after the applause died down. She went about her cleaning quietly, but there was a new sense of pride in her steps. Something inside her had changed. For years, she had worked in the background, unnoticed, keeping the school in order while her passion for music remained hidden. But now, that hidden part of her had been revealed, and she could feel the world looking at her in a new way. The music teacher couldn't stop thinking about the janitor's talent. She had spent countless hours with students, teaching them the rules of music, correcting mistakes, and encouraging practice. But this, she realized, was different. Talent like the janitor's couldn't be taught in lessons. It came from the heart, from dedication, from living with music every day in one's soul. She had underestimated the janitor for years, assuming that her job defined her. Now, she understood that the janitor's life had only shaped her resilience and love for music. The next morning, the janitor arrived at the school with a sense of anticipation. The music room felt alive, as if it had remembered the previous day's performance. She took a deep breath and sat at the piano, her fingers hovering above the keys. Today, she would play again, not just for herself, but for anyone willing to listen. She pressed the first key, and the sound filled the room, soft and tentative at first, then gradually flowing into a confident melody. Students started to gather quietly outside the music room, drawn by the sound. Even those who weren't normally interested in music paused in their tracks. Whispers of admiration traveled through the hallways. Teachers peeked in, some smiling, some with wide eyes, all impressed by the talent on display. The principal, hearing the music, came to the door and stood silently, watching as the janitor's fingers danced across the keys. The janitor played as if the piano were an extension of her own body, each note carrying emotion and meaning. The music told a story of her life, of the quiet hours spent practicing in secret, of the dreams she had held onto while performing her daily tasks, of the joy and escape she had found in each melody. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, creating sounds that were both powerful and gentle, commanding attention without demanding it. The music teacher stood at the doorway, her heart full of pride and awe. She realized that this moment was more than just a performance. It was a revelation. The janitor had been living with music in her heart for years, hidden from the world, and now that gift had finally been shared. She understood that her role was no longer just to teach students, but to support this hidden talent, to help the janitor grow and thrive in ways that would have been impossible before. As the janitor continued to play, she began to notice the small reactions around the room. Students were listening intently, some with smiles, some with wide eyes. Teachers were leaning forward, captivated by the emotion and skill on display. The principal stood silently, clearly impressed. For the first time, the janitor realized the impact her music could have on others. It wasn't just a private joy anymore. It could inspire, move, and even teach others about dedication, passion, and expression. The janitor felt a new sense of confidence as she played. She no longer worried about being judged or reprimanded. Instead, she focused on the music, allowing it to flow freely from her heart through her fingers and into the room. Each note was a conversation, each chord a story. She had discovered a power she had never fully understood before, the ability to communicate and connect with people through music alone. The music teacher finally spoke softly, not wanting to interrupt but feeling compelled to acknowledge the talent before her. "This is incredible," she said. "You have a gift that shouldn't be hidden. You need to keep playing, to keep sharing this with others. It's too special to stay a secret." The janitor paused briefly, taking in the teacher's words. She had always played for herself, never considering the possibility of recognition or encouragement. Now, hearing someone she respected acknowledge her talent, she felt a mixture of gratitude, nervousness, and determination. She nodded quietly and continued to play, more confidently than before. Over the next few days, the music room became a place of inspiration. Students would sometimes stop by just to listen, and teachers who had doubted the janitor's abilities began to offer encouragement. The principal even suggested that she perform at school events, giving her a platform to share her music with a wider audience. The janitor, once invisible, began to realize that her passion could have a real impact on others. The music teacher worked closely with her, offering guidance and support. She introduced the janitor to new pieces of music, helped refine her technique, and encouraged her to explore her own style. The janitor absorbed everything eagerly, learning not just about notes and rhythm, but about expression, emotion, and performance. She began to see herself not just as a janitor, but as a musician with a unique voice and perspective. As time went on, the janitor's confidence grew. She no longer hesitated when sitting at the piano, and her performances became more polished and expressive. Students and teachers alike were inspired by her journey, seeing in her a proof that talent can come from the most unexpected places. Her story became a reminder that passion, dedication, and love for what one does can overcome assumptions, judgments, and limitations. The janitor's music began to influence the school in other ways as well. Students who had never been interested in music started exploring it, inspired by her dedication and skill. Teachers found themselves pausing to listen, feeling the emotions conveyed through her playing. The school, once ordinary in its routines, became a place where music and creativity were celebrated, all because someone had dared to follow her heart despite the odds. Through it all, the janitor remained humble. She never played to show off or to gain recognition. Her music was an expression of herself, a way to share her joy, her struggles, and her experiences with others. Yet, the acknowledgement and support she received made her feel valued in a way she had never experienced before. She began to understand that her gift was not just for herself. It was a gift for the community, for anyone willing to listen. The music teacher watched her closely, proud of the progress and growth she had witnessed. She realized that the janitor had taught her as much as she had taught the janitor. She had learned to see beyond roles and appearances, to recognize potential and talent in unexpected places, and to understand the power of encouragement and support. The two developed a quiet bond, built on mutual respect, admiration, and a shared love for music. The janitor's journey had only just begun, but already she had made a mark on the school. She had transformed the music room from a quiet, overlooked space into a place of inspiration and wonder. Her music had touched hearts, sparked curiosity, and reminded everyone that talent can be found in the most unlikely people. And as she continued to play, she knew that she was no longer just a janitor who loved music. She was a musician, a storyteller, and a source of inspiration for everyone around her. The janitor's life slowly began to change, though she still maintained her daily routines. She arrived at the school early each morning, carrying her cleaning supplies and performing her usual tasks. But now her days held a new excitement. The music room had become a place she cherished even more, a place where she could pour her heart into every note and know that people would listen and appreciate her music. The once hidden talent she had nurtured in silence was now becoming a part of the school's life. The music teacher worked closely with her, offering encouragement, guidance, and new challenges. She introduced more complex pieces, helped her improve technique, and encouraged the janitor to explore her own style. The janitor, once hesitant and unsure of her abilities, began to embrace these opportunities. She practiced diligently, often arriving a little earlier and staying a little later, not out of obligation, but because she loved the music and wanted to grow. Students began to notice a change in the janitor as well. She carried herself with more confidence, walking through the halls with a quiet pride. Some students who had once ignored her now stopped to greet her or ask about her music. They were curious about her journey, about the hours she spent perfecting her skills, and about the joy she found in playing. The janitor shared her experiences with them in a humble way, never boasting, but always inspiring. The principal, impressed by the positive impact the janitor's music had on the school, suggested that she perform at school events. This was a big step for someone who had spent years in the background, unnoticed and unrecognized. At first, the janitor hesitated, unsure if she was ready for such public attention. But with encouragement from the music teacher and a quiet determination within herself, she agreed. She began preparing for her first official performance, choosing pieces that reflected her journey and the emotions she wanted to share. When the day of her first performance arrived, the school auditorium was filled with students, teachers, and staff. There was a quiet buzz of anticipation as everyone waited to see the janitor, the quiet woman who had captivated so many hearts with her piano playing. The janitor stood backstage for a moment, taking a deep breath, feeling the nerves and excitement intertwining. She reminded herself that this was not about proving herself, but about sharing her music and connecting with the audience. As she stepped onto the stage and sat at the piano, she felt a calmness wash over her. She pressed the first key, and the room was filled with a soft, gentle melody. Her hands moved naturally, guided by years of passion and practice. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the beauty and emotion in her playing. Each note seemed to tell a story of dedication, quiet perseverance, and love for music. The janitor played with a depth of feeling that left the audience amazed. Her music carried emotion, from soft and delicate passages to powerful, resonant chords that filled the room. She had learned to express herself not just through the technical precision of her playing, but through the emotion and narrative that her hands conveyed. It was a performance that touched hearts, made some listeners tear up, and left everyone in awe. After the performance, the applause was overwhelming. The janitor stood, a little shyly, and bowed to the audience. She felt a rush of gratitude, not for the recognition itself, but for the connection she had made through her music. People approached her, praising her talent, asking questions, and sharing how moved they had been by her performance. It was a new experience, one that she had never imagined for herself, and it filled her with a quiet joy. The music teacher stood to the side, smiling proudly. She had seen many students perform, but none had moved her like this. She realized that the janitor's journey was a powerful reminder that talent could emerge from the most unexpected places, and that with support, encouragement, and belief, someone's hidden gifts could flourish and inspire others. She felt honored to be part of this transformation, to have helped nurture a talent that had been waiting quietly for recognition. Over the following weeks, the janitor continued to play regularly, both in the music room and at school events. Each performance brought new opportunities and recognition, and yet she remained humble, focused on the joy of creating music rather than the accolades. Students were inspired by her dedication and passion, and some even began exploring music themselves, encouraged by her example. Teachers also learned a valuable lesson about looking beyond appearances and roles, and about recognizing the potential that often goes unnoticed. The janitor's story began to spread beyond the school. Parents, local residents, and even local newspapers took notice of the woman who had quietly worked in the school for years and emerged as an extraordinary pianist. Invitations to perform at community events and local gatherings followed. While she was initially hesitant, she began to embrace these opportunities, always remembering that her music was a gift meant to be shared. Each performance, whether for a small group or a large audience, was approached with the same care, emotion, and humility. Through all of this, the janitor remained true to herself. She never let fame or recognition change the person she had been. She still arrived at school early, performed her cleaning duties, and treated everyone with kindness and respect. But now, there was an added light in her eyes, a quiet confidence born of knowing that her passion and talent had value, and that she could touch lives in ways she had never imagined. The music teacher continued to mentor her, introducing her to new pieces, encouraging her creativity, and helping her develop her own musical voice. Together, they explored different styles and genres, experimented with improvisation, and discussed ways to convey emotions through music. The janitor's growth as a musician was remarkable, not only because of her skill but because of her dedication, humility, and the love she poured into each note. The janitor's journey inspired everyone around her. Students learned that talent can be found in the most unexpected people, and that hard work, passion, and dedication can transform lives. Teachers were reminded to look beyond appearances and assumptions, to recognize and nurture potential wherever it may be found. And the janitor herself discovered that following her heart and embracing her gift could lead to a life of fulfillment, connection, and joy. Through music, she had found her voice, her confidence, and her place in the world. the janitor who had once worked quietly in the background, unnoticed and underestimated, had become a source of inspiration and admiration. Her journey was a powerful testament to the idea that talent, perseverance, and a love for what one does can break barriers, change perceptions, and touch the hearts of many. And as she continued to play, she knew that her story was just beginning, with endless possibilities waiting to unfold through the magic of music. Time passed, and the janitor's life had changed in ways she had never imagined. She still arrived at the school early, quietly performing her cleaning duties. But now there was a sense of purpose in every step she took. The music room had become a sanctuary, a place where her talent could shine and where her spirit could find joy. Students and teachers alike had come to see her not just as the janitor who kept the school clean, but as a musician, a storyteller, and an inspiration. The janitor had continued to perform at school events, each time drawing larger audiences. Her music resonated deeply with everyone who listened, touching hearts and inspiring emotions that words could not express. She remained humble, never letting recognition or praise change who she was. She still took pride in her work around the school, understanding that her dedication in all areas of life had shaped the person she had become. The music teacher remained a constant guide and supporter. Together, they explored new musical pieces, experimented with improvisation, and discussed ways to express feelings through music. The teacher encouraged the janitor to explore her creativity, to compose original melodies, and to continue growing as a musician. Each day brought new discoveries, new challenges, and new joys, deepening their bond and creating a relationship built on mutual respect and admiration. Students began to see the janitor as a role model. Many had been inspired by her journey from unnoticed worker to celebrated musician. They realized that passion, dedication, and perseverance could lead to extraordinary accomplishments, regardless of one's position or background. The janitor's story became a lesson in resilience, showing that true talent often hides in unexpected places, and that with encouragement and opportunity, it can flourish. The school community began to embrace music more fully. Inspired by the janitor's performances, students explored their own musical interests, teachers incorporated more creative activities into lessons, and the school became a place where artistic expression was celebrated. The janitor's influence extended beyond her music. She had sparked a cultural shift within the school, reminding everyone of the power of creativity and the importance of recognizing potential wherever it may be found. One afternoon, after finishing her cleaning duties, the janitor sat at the piano and began to play. The room was quiet, filled with the soft light of the afternoon sun. She allowed herself to feel every note, every chord, every phrase. Her fingers moved gracefully across the keys, telling a story of years spent in quiet perseverance, of dreams nurtured in secret, and of the joy and freedom that music had brought into her life. The sound seemed to fill the entire building, touching every heart that listened. The music teacher entered quietly, listening from the doorway. She had watched the janitor grow from someone she had underestimated to a musician whose talent inspired and moved everyone. She felt a sense of pride and fulfillment, knowing she had been part of this journey, that she had helped someone find their voice and share it with the world. The teacher realized that the janitor had taught her as much as she had taught the janitor. She had learned to look beyond appearances, to recognize hidden potential, and to understand the transformative power of support and encouragement. The janitor's performances had also begun to attract attention outside the school. Parents, local community members, and even local media had heard about her story. They were drawn by the remarkable journey of a woman who had quietly worked behind the scenes and emerged as a talented musician. Invitations to perform at community events, local gatherings, and cultural programs followed. Each opportunity was approached with humility, dedication, and a desire to share the joy of music rather than to seek fame. Despite her growing recognition, the janitor never lost sight of her roots. She continued to perform her cleaning duties with care and dedication, understanding that her work, like her music, was a reflection of who she was. She had learned that every task, every note, every effort contributed to the person she had become. Her story became an example to everyone that greatness often comes from the combination of talent, hard work, and love for what one does. Over time, the janitor's influence extended even further. Students who had once been unsure of their abilities were inspired to pursue their own passions. Teachers found new ways to support and nurture hidden talents in their classrooms. The school became a place where potential was recognized and celebrated, and the janitor's story served as a constant reminder of what could be achieved when someone's gift was discovered and encouraged. Through all of this, the janitor remained grounded. She continued to play for the love of music, to share her talent with others, and to inspire those around her. She had discovered that her gift was not just a personal joy, but a means to touch the hearts of others, to bring people together, and to show that talent can emerge from the most unexpected places. Her journey had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of everyone who had the chance to hear her play. The music teacher and the janitor continued to work together, exploring new musical horizons and expanding their creative collaboration. They experimented with different styles, composed new pieces, and organized performances that showcased the janitor's growing skill and unique voice. Their partnership became a symbol of what could be achieved when talent, encouragement, and dedication came together. As the years went by, the janitor's story remained a powerful lesson in the school community. It reminded everyone that talent often hides in quiet, unexpected places, waiting for the right moment and the right support to emerge. It showed that encouragement and recognition could transform lives, and that perseverance, passion, and humility were key to realizing one's potential. The janitor, once overlooked and underestimated, had become a beacon of inspiration, proving that dreams nurtured in secret could grow into something extraordinary. The janitor's music continued to fill the halls of the school, touching the hearts of all who heard it. Her journey from quiet, unnoticed worker to celebrated musician became a story that everyone shared, a reminder that greatness can be found in the most unexpected people and places. Through her dedication, humility, and love for music, she had shown that talent, when nurtured and encouraged, has the power to inspire, transform, and create lasting impact. In the end, the janitor's life was a testament to the beauty of perseverance, the power of encouragement, and the magic of music. She had followed her passion, embraced her gift, and inspired countless others along the way. The piano, once a simple instrument in a quiet corner of the school, had become a source of joy, connection, and transformation. And the janitor, who had once been invisible, had become a symbol of hope, proving that when talent is recognized and nurtured, it can shine brilliantly, changing not only one life but many.